is about the future of our economy. It's about the future of Canada. I say future of Canada and our nations because it's about how we can build in all senses, particularly how we can build together, and how we can build an economy that moves from reliance to resilience, from division to unity, from silos to true partnership. Earlier this week, we were in Kelowna, talking about building and pivoting and building the competitiveness of our forest product sector. We're going to spend tomorrow with the Canadian Armed Forces, building security and defense. There is so much for us to do, and we're very focused on doing all of that. Focusing on what we can control. And yes, we're having discussions with the Americans, but Canadians want us to focus here at home, build out home. We're listening now as we meet at a decisive moment for our country. I think we all know that the U.S. is in the process of fundamentally changing its trading relationships, not just with Canada, but with all countries. In effect, it's now charging for access to its economy. And we'll continue to work with the United States on the many, many mutually beneficial opportunities that we share in trade and investment. But it's clear we can't solely count on what had been our most valued trading relationship. So we're focused. We're focused on building strength here at home. And one example of what we need to do was earlier this week, Minister Hodgson and I were in Kelowna, and we announced over $1.25 billion of new investments in the softwood lumber industry, one of the industries most affected by years, in fact, decades of trade actions. And at the core of that was investment in Indigenous communities and Indigenous services, recognizing the close relationship. So it's liquidity for companies, it's capital for those companies to pivot to new markets and new opportunities, it's worker support, and it's direct support for Indigenous-led forestry business development and diversification, including both a reinforcement and really an expansion of the Indigenous Forestry Initiative, which supports Indigenous-led projects and priorities. Because when we build the new Canada, as we build the new Canada, we're going to build it in partnership with Indigenous peoples, and that's why we're here today. Now, we'll spend a good bit of our time discussing Bill C-5, the Building Canada Act, but really how to put it into action, how to turn its potential into reality. C-5 has the potential, as I say, to unleash enormous possibilities, to build big things, ports, trade corridors, energy infrastructure, to help develop our natural resources, our critical minerals, help develop our people in ways that connect and transform our economy. Part of at the core of this act is changing how the federal government operates. One aspect of that is moving from a position when we see a new project from asking the question why to asking the question how. How can we build? And core to that concept of how we build is building in true partnership with Indigenous peoples. And that's why we're here to listen, to hear your perspectives, to make the most of this opportunity. You know, right at the heart of the Act, it defines what is a project in national interest. Well, the first thing is it's a project that helps strengthen Canada's autonomy, our sovereignty, really, our resilience, our security. Of course, it will provide economic and other benefits to our country. We don't want pie-in-the-sky projects. We want projects that have a high likelihood of success. Yes, as Vita said, it will require hard work. That's fine. Nobody here is afraid of hard work, but we want a high probability of success. Core to the Act, core to the objectives, these projects must advance the interests of Indigenous peoples, and they must contribute collectively to clean growth and to meeting Canada's objectives with respect to climate change.
What you just heard wasn't just a speech. That was a signal, a message to Canada, and let's be honest, a not-so-subtle message to Washington. Mark Carney didn't name Trump, but the message was clear. Canada is done playing by someone else's rules. The 35% tariff slapped on Canadian goods by President Trump on August 1st, that was the final straw. And this was Canada's response. Today in Ottawa, Carney stood before Métis leaders to talk about Bill C-5, the Building Canada Act. But what actually stole the spotlight was his defiance. He outlined a blueprint, not just for infrastructure, but for independence, economic independence. Let's be real. For decades, Canada leaned heavily on the United States. Trade, supply chains, energy corridors, you name it. But with Trump back in power and acting more like a tariff-happy strongman than a trade partner, Carney's message hit different. We can't solely count on what had been our most valued trading relationship. That's not a political jab. That's a strategic pivot. Carney's choice of words is worth noting.
From reliance to resilience, from division to unity, from silos to true partnership.
This isn't just rhetoric. It's a recalibration. Over $1.25 billion is now being pumped into Canada's softwood lumber industry, an industry decimated by decades of trade actions. Where's that money going? Into Indigenous communities, into capital for new markets, into business diversification. It's Canada hedging its bets internally. And honestly, it's about time. The heart of Bill C-5 is about rethinking what a national interest project really is. No more pipe dreams. Carney says it plain. We want projects that will actually get built. Ports, energy infrastructure, clean growth corridors, designed not just for short-term trade, but long-term sovereignty. It's not just a shift in policy, it's a